It is part of the rubric, and it is between categories, for example, 3 and 2 out of 4 levels. How intelligible it was, how hard the person, the listener, the perceiver, in this case the reader, had to struggle to understand. So of course that it's a little bit tricky to define how much effort had to put into understanding, but the scores are standardized through training. So how distracting the performance was, of course, that probably it also varies according to reader background. And for example, let's say that the largest majority here of students, especially grads, are Asian. So let's say that Asians are more intelligible or not. But we try to keep unbiased and trained and normed, but we do take that into account as part of the training. So it's a very good question.
I think it is a very good question, and that's actually what we do during norming. So when I have 16 faculty and we throw out videos of samples of students giving a test, sometimes we have a very large range, and that is exactly what is reflected in that. Someone has a hard time understanding and dismisses this as a bad performance. Someone like me, who knows how hard it was to get there, might be much more lenient. And this is what we do during norming. But in theory, it is very difficult to put it into the rubric, because you would have to test, you would have to have so many perceivers and kind of get to an average of this is what it is. So I think it is going to be an ongoing dynamic, but with this enormous globalization and with the understanding that we will have to understand each other outside the classroom as well, I think people, the native speakers, are going to be a lot more receptive towards accents. And as a first generation person here in the States, I have to tell you there are remarkable differences between even counties, let alone states, of how well people receive you as a foreign speaker versus telephone conversations in other states where I have to repeat myself about 5 times. So I think that we are in a process of this globalizing work.
So one thing we also try to do is to have raters in the same room from different backgrounds. So we're going to have different scores. And also we're going to collect the undergrad's perspective of intelligibility and struggle. And we're going to compare these scores. And if there's a discrepancy, the tests are videotaped. So the TOP coordinators later could, again, see the video and try to rate it again and grade it again. So it might help a little bit.
Just one quick comment. The scoring sheets that the raters are given, they have to put a number, so they have to quantify it, and then they also have to have a descriptive justification for that number. So the coordinator's job is then to evaluate these descriptions, and if they are not rich enough to justify that score or that number, then they're evaluated, by a third party, or they call it a third read, this sort of thing.
This whole topic reminds me of a wonderful study for the Arabic language assessment, OPI, I think by Jahoub, and they had like different raters, native and non-native, and from here, and people from Jordan, and they had all that assessment, that considerations. So that's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is a really wonderful question. I'd like to take it for a minute out of the quantifiable component. I think that maybe also something going on individually, where some individuals may not be, for whatever reason, maybe it's cognitive, maybe it's social, the ability to cut past those features that would be totally incomprehensible to someone. Somebody else might just cut right through. I have a couple of examples, and one of them is very recent. 2 weeks ago, I was in Paris with my grandchildren, and we had one waiter. We kept looking for that classic waiter that is so famous as being rude and so forth. But we had one that was just charming. And I have one grandchild who is wearing his hair, I don't know what the style is called, but anyway, like a helmet, you know, kind of all over, just, so the waiter was saying, and he used a phrase that none of us could understand what he was saying. He was trying to, you know, be cute. And my 8-year-old grandchild said, he's saying Harry Potter. And we all said, what? And so he had been, the French waiter had been saying, Harry Potter, Harry Potter. And none of us had made the translation, but this 8-year-old who speaks only English, I mean, he has played around with Spanish with abuela, but he's not fluent. And but he was able to cut through all that racket that, you know, for us it was just noise. But what is it? And so that's one example. The other example is from something that I was hoping to be able to share with you yesterday, and that was a middle school teacher of mathematics from Ghana who was in a teacher training program with me, with some people from UCLA, the math program. And he showed us a video of his class, with his class. I had a terrible time trying to understand what he was doing, teaching algebra, but the students that he was teaching, who were all second language learners, were just eating out of his hand. So my point is that seems to be something natural about us, and you know, for some of us we have to work very hard and we still don't get it, and for others it just comes right through. I think it has something to do with our interest in what's going on. And maybe some personality from both sides.